Um, speaking of characters having their bodies snatched,
Yes.
we close out with our weekly classic movie review of Invasion of the Body Snatchers, as opposed to the adult parody Invasion of the Booty Snatchers, parts 1 through 15.
Yeah. 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 So this is the original version of Invasion of the Body Snatchers. There have been several remakes that have been done over the last few decades. The most notable one was from the 70s
Mhm.
with Donald Sutherland. Uh, there was a more recent one that they did that was, from what I hear, god awful. With
Which probably explains why I didn't even hear about it.
Yeah, yeah, it was with Nicole Kidman and Daniel Craig.
Mm.
But I've always wanted to watch this one because my mother watched this when she was a kid, and it she said it scared her when she first saw it. Of course, this is 1950s, and
Mhm.
things were a little different then.
Well, and it's kind of a horrifying concept if you don't know what the twist is.
Yeah. Ninja says, so it's anti-communist propaganda horror film. Kind of. Yeah.
Yeah, the body snatchers are kind of there's a few lines that make it clear that the snatchers are a metaphor for communism.
Yeah.
But so we are going to get deep into spoilers on this one.
Yes. Yeah.
Uh,
There's. Yeah.
so it was made in 1956. If you for some reason have stumbled across a review of this that and you don't want to be spoiled, it is on Paramount Plus.
Yeah.
It is a fine B horror movie
Yes.
that we are about to get a little pedantic about.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. This is the kind of movie that your parents or grandparents would have gone to see at the drive-in. And the guy is hoping that the scary parts will make the girl jump onto him, and
Yeah.
maybe he'll get some over the shirt action.
Yep. But uh, okay, so movie starts off, and the framing device is a guy in an insane asylum who is
Yes.
ranting about, no, it's them, it's them. You gotta believe me.
Yes. Yeah, and he's a doctor. He's a general practitioner. I can't remember his name. It starts with a B.
Well, we have the actors, and main actor and actress's names here. We can just call them Kevin and Dana.
Okay. So, but yeah, he's ranting to this doctor about what's they're about what's going on. So then he finally sits down, and the whole movie's told in flashback with him recounting the last couple of days of last crazy couple of days, which sees him returning back to the small town where he's a small town doctor,
Hmm.
and he comes back early from a conference, and his nurse tells him, well, all these people want to come in, all the people in town wanted to see him. They didn't want to go see the doctor that he was referring to people. But then as soon as he gets there, nobody wants to see him, and he's like, well, what's going on here? And
Yeah.
yeah.
And, like, strange things are happening. Like there are people in town who are just insisting that their loved ones aren't actually their loved ones. He
Yeah.
almost hits a little boy who's running through the streets screaming out, "That's not my mother. She's not. She's not."
Right. Yeah. And then he's got and then his lady friend, I guess we'll call her,
Yep.
because that's this part of the movie that got me, was the love interest, by the way, is married to another man. And they're carrying on like they're in a relationship. Like, this is the 1950s here. It's,
Yeah, man. Yeah, they hang cuckolders in these parts.
yeah. but But yeah, so she comes to him and says, "Oh, my cousin thinks that her their aunt and uncle, her parents aren't really her parents."
Hmm.
And then he goes to see them, and he said, "Oh no," or they seem fine to me, nothing
Yep.
nothing out of the ordinary. And uh, then he gets a call from a friend of his, another couple, and they find a body,
But a very
uh,
indistinct body.
a very indistinct body, yes, with no fingerprints on it, and they're not sure what to do, and they they don't call the police. What they do is the doctor tells them, well, just keep an eye on him, and something changes, let me know.
And I call the police in the morning if nothing weird is going on.
Right.
That, which that's sort of interesting. Like, I mean, they basically understand it's like an odd phenomenon.
Right.
Uh,
Yeah. And
it's
yeah.
so like the rest of the movie is the slow uncovering. Like, if you ever heard people talk about pod people, this is where that comes from.
Right. Yeah. Because the long story short, yeah, they find out that the people are being replaced with these uh, these giant pods. They look like giant leaves that are,
Yeah, giant pea pods.
giant pea pods. And they're actually aliens that there were spores that got into the plants, and then they grow into other people, or they
Yeah,
they take people over, basically. Yeah.
right. And uh, there are some kind of horrifying scenes like where they find the half-formed bodies in the pods, with the pods forming the bodies of people,
Yeah.
which have some
There's
nice
some.
special effects.
Yeah. Obviously soap suds.
Yeah,
But the goose stuff, though, I mean, that was pretty good for 1950s effects.
yeah, and they had a fake version of him that, like, he finds his pod and he stabs that through the chest with a pitchfork to kill it.
Yeah, and green goo comes out of it. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. The one special effect fail I did notice was they had a couple of pods in the back of their car, and when he pulled them out, it was so clear that they had absolutely no weight whatsoever.
Yeah.
Like, clearly just fiberglass or something.
Yeah, they just well, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, as opposed to being something that would, in theory, be about as heavy as a person.
Yeah.
Um, and over the course of it, more and more people become the pods, and the part where it's clearly the anti-communist thing is, oh, you have you're better off without it, without love, without fear, without faith, without your life is so much simpler. Become one of
Yeah.
us.
Yes.
Um, and there's a few demerits against this movie. Actually, one thing I'll praise is that I did enjoy some of the back and forth banter between Kevin and Dana.
Yeah.
Like, surprisingly adult.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Is that your bedside manner? No, that comes later.
Yeah. Yes. That's good innuendo.
Yeah. Um, Also, I'd forgotten that he was carrying on an affair with her. Boy, it's kind of funny that her dad was super cool with her, with him showing up with her at their house.
Yeah. Like, hmm.
Um, the actual mechanics of the pod switching are a little bit indistinct
Yeah. Yeah,
because
yeah, yeah.
oh, no, go ahead.
Well, yeah, we were talking about it before the show. Yeah, that um it they make duplicates of them in the pods,
Hmm.
but the way they lose themselves, or they get taken over when they fall asleep. And so they tell them, like, so Kevin and Dana are trying very hard to stay awake. And there's a scene in there where she ends up falling asleep very briefly, and then she gets taken over right then and there. So it's like, okay, well, I thought that her mind went to the pod thing and not the pod thing going into her. It was, yeah.
Right, like why do we need a physical duplicate if it's like a telepathic takeover?
Yeah. Yeah, that was, yeah, that's the one glaring plot hole in this movie that's kind of like, okay, I guess the writers didn't quite think that through very well.
Yeah, right, and I guess the problem is that you have the visual of the pods and the bodies in the pods, so you want that.
Yeah.
Um, you would think it'd be more of like a straightforward replacement where they would just duplicate everything about them and then dispose of the original somehow
Yeah.
rather than
Yeah.
possessing them.
Right. Yeah. And or just have like or maybe have like a scene where, and I know they probably had to condense it for the sake of time, because I mean this movie's only 80 minutes long.
Yeah,
Um,
it was part of a double feature.
yeah, and so um, what they could have done was just like when she goes to sleep, like she's just dead asleep, and then maybe have like her duplicate show up.
Right. Although like we were talking before the show, the problem was that they were on the run in the hills and nobody knew where they were. So unless the
Right.
duplicate had a way of just honing in on her,
Yeah.
eh, but now mind you, the actual moment itself where she wakes up and she's no longer herself is kind of horrifying. So
Yeah, that's true.
it works on a feels level, but we couldn't turn off our stupid brains.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, then the other great flaw of the movie is that if you want to enjoy it on like a horror level, in the last scene where the doctors I've concluded, oh, this poor man is insane. As soon as the doctor opens the door and leaves, turn off the stream
Yeah. Yeah.
because God, I'm reminded of the bit in The Producers where they're talking about Springtime for Hitler, and the director, who is a complete incompetent,
Yeah.
says, "Well, we're gonna have to do some rewrites. They're losing the war. That's too downbeat."
Yeah.
So somebody at the studios
Mhm.
forced them to make a brief scene where they
Yeah.
where the authorities realize what's going on, and it's
Yeah.
implied that don't worry guys, the government has this.
Yes. Yeah. It's all gonna be okay.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you're right about that. Yeah, because they obviously, because I mean this was 1950s. Movies back then they had to have, yeah, the endings had to be somewhat upbeat. They had to have some kind of hope to them. Yeah, and
Right. Which, I mean, don't get me wrong, I usually enjoy hopeful upbeat movies. Horror is not usually my genre, but stick to what you are, man.
yeah,
The director has admitted, or the director has said afterwards that those last couple minutes were a mistake.
mm, yeah. Yeah, and it just says, "Oh yes, the government, the people who totally weaponize black people, especially is it like Alex Jones."
Yeah, but I mean, so aside from those nitpicks, it's
Mhm.
a totally fine watch.
Yeah, it's like I said, classic, or like we said, it's a classic, '50s B movie horror flick. If you're curious about where the genesis of this story came from, it's fairly entertaining movie to watch. Yeah.
Yep. Well,
Well,
that was a weirdly diverse night.
yes, it was.
We talked about we did our box office. We talked about an anime, a comic
Mhm,
book, an Ahsoka,
mhm.
and a bit of comic book rage, and a classic movie.
Yes.
So out there, and Daniel, I would suggest keeping this on the uh, Body Snatchers review. Do you,
Yeah.
do you enjoy these shorter videos versus mean, we kind of realized that I kind of went a little bit long-winded about OK Corral. Like it does not take 40 minutes to describe a movie that takes an hour and a half to watch.
Yeah, yeah.
So, are you enjoying us trying to be punchier, or do you want us to ramble? You're the
Yes,
viewer. You decide.
exactly. Yeah.
We can make either one work.